Okay, hello. Over the past few months, I have been working on a project in Godot as my side project. I have been creating a dungeon generator in voxels. I came across an algorithm on the internet that I thought was interesting and started tinkering with it. And then I thought it would be cool if the player was able to move through this and we would be able to alter it through volumetric data. So I applied a voxel algorithm to it. I shall be displaying this today and shall be explaining some of its inner workings. The algorithm has been configured to generate a starting and ending room into the dungeon itself. The starting room is indicated as pink so that I can be able to find it easily when I'm looking from above. And the end room is purple. The dungeon has been divided up into segments of 10 by 10 by 2 chunks. 10 by 10 being the depth and width of the segment, and the 2 being the height. One of the units in that 10 by 10 by 2 is a chunk. A chunk is divided up into blocks. It's a cubic voxel algorithm. A block is 50 by 50 by 50 centimeters. And there is 16 by 16 by 12 blocks in a chunk. 12 being the height of the chunk and the other 2 being the depth and width. How this dungeon algorithm works is it divides the entire dungeon up into segments. These individual segments then generate a dungeon piece, which checks if it has neighbors, and then if it does have neighbors, it generates outgoing hallways onto those neighbors, and then the neighbor will check if its neighbor has outgoing hallways into its directions, and then adopts these hallways so that it will be able to keep generating. I shall display that now so that it will become a little more clear with a visual indicator. These bordering hallways, as I call them, have the color red so that you can easily spot them from above as well. You shall be seeing those now. So this is the edge of one of those segments. Because this is the first segment that's generated, this would be considered an origin border. The second segment, which would be the second one, that would be 10 by 10 by 2, then checks if its neighbor, which is this one, has a bordering hallway, and then puts an adjacent bordering hallway over there, saying that this would be its way into this dungeon segment. If I now grab my player, I shall be quickly going through the dungeon to indicate the speed of the generation itself. As you can see, there was no stutters there or anything. This is because the entire dungeon generation itself has been multi-threaded, with a maximum of 4 cores to be used at the same time, or 4 threads at the same time. This has been done by a task system. Anything else I want to say about this? No, not really. Not as easy as I make it sound, I know. The chunks themselves, the mesh instances, have been pulled. So at the beginning of a game being started, a maximum amount of mesh instances calculated through your generate and render distance is created. And these are then placed into the world. They get used while generating. So there's a giant list somewhere that has all of these unused mesh instances in it. And then these get pulled out of the list and added onto the world data and set to visible. When the player moves far away enough, or far enough away, I'm sorry, my English sometimes isn't as great, these chunks are then, or mesh instances are then set back to invisible and put into the queue to be reused again by the generation. Sometimes the setting to invisible is not yet completely, well, bug-free, as you can see, because currently we have some chunks over here that are still visible. But that is not the biggest problem as of yet. If I move through the dungeon quickly, I would like to show you that the dungeon also remembers its data. So I move over here. You can see the dungeon keeps all of its previously generated data and it like doesn't generate any new layouts. I would also like you to show you that there is an edge to the dungeon. So as you can see, the dungeon doesn't go on beyond this point. And that there is an end room, which I would like to also be able to see. So let's go onto the end room, which I know where it is because I've set it to a static location for now, but it does actually generate randomly. And that would be over here. So the end room is always at the farthest point away from the beginning room so that you have to move through the entire dungeon. I will change that, but for now this is just a static list of like randomly iterated through locations at the beginning of the chunk. So I have like 8 locations, which like the starting room would be at the top left and the end room would be at the top right. And that would go through for all locations on the level. So starting room at the top on the top left would mean that the end room would be at the bottom on the bottom right. And that's for each location and each height position. But yeah, that is my dungeon generation, and I hope you enjoyed it and thought it was an interesting thing to see. I can now also quickly show you what it looks like when you're moving through it in the third person modus. As you can see, we have our little pill dude over here, that's our player. And if we then start moving, you can see that you can currently see the generation, because again, I set the render distance to 6 chunks. There is still some, in some locations, there is still some bugs with the chunk generation by itself, actually. I have to say that. So in some locations, you will be able to see like through the edges of the world. But for now, this is fine. It's a demo. Like I said, it's a demo, so it doesn't have to be picture perfect. As you can see, we've been moving through chunked borders. These are the red ones, as I said before, and there's not been any stutters. And just, yeah, it generates a dungeon. I am still working on making these rooms a little more, well, interesting, because as you can see, currently it's just some doors and walls, but that's all for later. This is a wall. Yes, that's a wall. Downside to my demo colors is actually that sometimes it's very hard to see if the wall was generated or you're looking into the abyss, which I should have honestly done something about. Maybe made the walls pink, which would be different from the base Godot skybox, but yeah, didn't do that. Yeah, moving through the dungeon, no bugs, no jitters or lag at all. Actually surprised at how well it's working. It's running at 144 frames currently. I can show. Where is it? Stack trace evaluator, master visual is. No. This one. Yes. 144 frames. And the next update to this would be greedy meshing. Currently, the chunks are generated with the classic voxel algorithm, no greedy meshing or anything. As I basically, with a classic voxel algorithm, I mean anything you can find on YouTube. There are tons of these for both Unity, Godot, and Unreal. The greedy meshing algorithm I want to use so that I won't be using as much VRAM, and I can use a greedy meshing algorithm easily in this algorithm as well, because I'm not currently considering giving the player access to be able to destroy blocks in here. I want this to be a static dungeon, which the greedy meshing algorithm supports perfectly. The other thing I would like to do is I would like the greedy meshing algorithm to be the bitwise operated one. I've never been able to apply this one before because I had no reason to, and this project seemed like the perfect moment for me to do that, which will be the next update. I've been moving through this dungeon now forever, and I've actually reached the end. The next two updates I want to do for the dungeon is making the staircase generation less frantic, because currently the staircase generation is done through the hallway generation, which makes it that the stairs can show up wherever they want, which, as you can see, is not as great. I want to create a function that will basically make a staircase its own room, and then define that the maximum amount of staircases per floor on the dungeon, which would probably be 2 or 3, making it harder for you to move from one floor to the other, making it harder for you to reach this end room, and also making it more of a maze, because currently there's just giant holes in the floors everywhere. But yeah, that's that and the greedy meshing algorithm will be the next two updates, and I hope you enjoyed this display of my, well, hobby project for now. Have a nice day.